Welcome to the Washington Stormwater Center's Construction Stormwater Training Series. These videos will cover erosion and sediment control BMPs for small construction projects and maintenance activities. Stormwater protection from pollutants into municipal systems and water bodies is a growing concern as our urban landscape expands. Managing this runoff in accordance with local requirements can be complex, but this series and the additional resources provided will help you identify tools and practices to keep your project moving forward while protecting our water resources. This series is 8 short episodes divided into categories of BMPs. Nathan Hardebeck with Clean Water Technologies will guide you through an overview of each BMP that addresses different aspects of construction activity to prevent contaminated runoff from leaving your project. The episodes are Planning BMPs, Operational BMPs, Perimeter BMPs Part 1, Perimeter BMPs Part 2, Covering BMPs Part 1, Covering BMPs Part 2, Conveyance BMPs, and Project Completion BMPs. If you design or work on small construction or maintenance projects that disturb the soil, these videos will help you keep your project moving forward, meet the requirements of local and state regulations across Washington, and keep our communities healthy.
Hi, my name is Nathan Hardebeck, and we're going to talk about erosion and sediment control for small projects and municipal operation and maintenance activity. Practices may change, but the principles of erosion and sediment control remain the same no matter what your project is. Erosion and sediment control for projects that are 1 acre or larger are required to have a permit from the state, but we're going to talk about those projects that are under that threshold or maybe linear or shorter in duration, and we're going to talk about basic principles and management techniques to prevent erosion, prevent highly turbid water coming off, or having processed water commingle into your system. A lot of the challenges that occur in this type of activity are, number one, just meeting site management. Making sure that you've got all of your vendors and all the people that are going to participate with you on this project thinking the same way that you do. That we're all looking out not only for how to get the project done, but we're looking out for the environment as well and getting all of that coordinated. We need to make sure that our project area is defined and that the perimeter of that area is defined as well, so we're not allowing water to run onto our project or dirty water to leave the site or sediment to leave the site. Stockpiles are a notorious challenge on projects as they are high-risk features that can cause erosion for us. There are several types of water that we're going to encounter on our projects, whether it's water that falls out of the sky, which we call stormwater. We may be pushing water through a machine to do work like a pressure washer or a saw cutting, and we call that process water. Or water can actually come up through the ground, get into our hole, and we need to pump that water out of the hole and into the storm water. We call that groundwater, which we now have to dewater into the storm system without creating risk to the storm system. So all of these different water classifications require a different management system. Waste management is also very critical on our projects in terms of how we manage our site. Even your support vendors can leave half-used buckets of materials out into the weather and rain fills them up and introduces pollutants to the stormwater, and we need to control that. We need to make sure that we've got management plans for all of our waste products. You need to have proper disposal processes in place and use dumpsters with lids on our projects as well whenever possible. And then we really need to have the what if. We need to build contingency into our program. What if we experience a very difficult rain event? What if we have snow that buries our project and then melts on top of it? What if our project goes longer than we anticipated? We need to build contingencies into our management program so that we can be successful even during difficult periods when we know that with any type of construction activity, the best laid plans that you start in a dry environment are going to change as you go out into the field. We use this term a lot in stormwater called best management practices, or the acronym is BMPs. They are control measures, they are techniques that you apply on your projects so that you prevent erosion and highly turbid water from leaving your piece of property and protecting the environment. I want to make sure that you understand that BMPs are not just things that you buy out of catalogs, it's how you behave, it's how you manage. In fact, the two best BMPs you have available to you are common sense and communication. And you need to utilize those on a frequent basis so that everybody on the project is rowing in the same direction and understands the rules and objectives of environmental protection from that standpoint on all projects. BMPs really fall into three major categories. First, has to do with the project design. It has to do with how you're going to do what you're going to do. Can you do it in such a way where you're leaving more of the existing vegetation on the piece of property? The second group has to do with how do we operate? When do we do things? And at what time, and what are the timing of things? Oftentimes we don't get to dictate the time of year or the calendar date when things occur, but we can make good weekly decisions. And how do we make our late Friday afternoon decisions prevent them from becoming a Monday morning problem? And then finally, there's a category of BMPs that you can buy out of catalogs and out of warehouses. And we're going to go through those and show you different products and features that are out there that will help you be successful on your projects moving forward. Project setup and design requires that we really need to think about what are the project outcomes. Obviously, there's something to build, there's something to construct, there's something to demo, and those become one of the outcomes. But how do you do that in the light of where you're doing it? Are you doing it next to a sensitive receiving water? Are there endangered species that may influence your project? Are you highly visible to the general public where lots of phone calls can be made? How do you do this safely? Those type of project influences should all be discussed before the project starts so that you can create a plan for success. A lot of that has to do with project size. The different types of soil that you're working in can greatly influence the erosion and how BMPs are used properly on the project to help particles settle out of the column of water. You need to make sure that there's a time element consideration for your project. Like working in the summer is going to be different than working in the winter from a stormwater and dust control standpoint. And how does that influence your decision making, not only for the project duration, but for your project schedule? And then again, there are these other outside influences like wildlife, neighbor properties, and noise-related issues. You want to do this project without what I call blinking on the radar. You want to be able to get this project done without a lot of external stakeholders' involvement into your project, influencing how you're going to do it and when you're going to do it. Design BMPs have a lot to do with doing things in a way where we're lowering the risk of erosion from your piece of property. If you don't learn anything about any more of this, the part that I want you to remember is that vegetation is your best erosion control BMP. The more vegetation that you can leave on your piece of property, the more cost-effective you're going to be at your approach from an erosion control standpoint. I know that doesn't always work out from a budgetary standpoint when it comes to equipment, and phasing projects is difficult, but the more vegetation that we can leave on the project, the better off we're going to be. You are not going to get that vegetation to reemerge tomorrow, so we have to find a supplement for that, waiting for that vegetation to take hold. We want to figure out how to minimize slope lengths. We want to try to figure out how to use the existing land contours to the best that we can to not make things steeper than they need to be or slides longer than they need to be. We need to continue to account for potential water running onto the piece of property. Run on oftentimes is one of our bigger challenges to these smaller projects where we may be working on the shoulder of the road or at the bottom of the hill. How do we divert that water running through, around, under our project without opening exposure onto our site and allowing the dirty water to discharge off? We're going to have to deal with all those different types of water where we may need to have dewatering plan of getting rid of dirty water out of a hole into the storm system, or if we're going to use concrete to do some concrete cutting or concrete work, where's our designated washout area going to be? And again, we need to build in those what ifs into our site management. What if the schedule goes longer? What if we encounter some weather we weren't planning on? Meeting the project outcomes requires teamwork. This is something that people have to do together. If you're the only person on your project that knows erosion and sediment control is important, it's going to be a tough road for you. I really want to encourage you Just as we do safety meetings on a routine basis, use that opportunity to talk about erosion and sediment control. Talk about how you're going to do this activity without causing risk to the environment as you do it. And that communication needs to go beyond your immediate team to the support vendors as well. Those support vendors may be doing things on other pieces of property for other purposes, but you need them to behave in a certain way on your site to be successful.